All right, all right. What is going on, my brothers? We are live for episode number 95 before the train wreck. I'm joined today with a good old friend by we're going to go with Renegade Wingman. Should we just call you Renegade or?
Sure, Renegade Wingman,
All right,
RW, whichever.
RW. All right. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory because he linked up with me a couple years ago when I was down in LA, and he hit me up, the other week or so to try to do this cast on some dating tips because, well, my boy RW here is a little bit of a seasoned gentleman that most people have never heard of that has some serious skills. I linked up with him in LA when I was down there on a daddy-daughter trip with my kid, and he was like, "Hey, dude, I got an E46 M3. Let's go for a rip. I'll show you around the town." So I rented this Porsche Boxster, and he took me through the canyons. He showed me around. There was a lot of really cool places he took me afterwards, days on. So really enjoyed, the hospitality, and I'm grateful and thankful that, we were able to hang out and do all that shit, because now we get to talk today on my channel about something that you're pretty much a world-class expert at that, and nobody's even ever heard of you, really. I mean, I didn't even know this until I started kind of talking to you when we met up, and I looked at some of your material when you gave me your handle sort of thing. So introduce yourself and tell them who you are and, what you've been up to.
Yeah, well, thank you for the intro. I'm definitely going to have to put you on the payroll to be my personal hype man for sure. Yeah, so Renegade Wingman. I've been a professional dating and lifestyle coach for going on 5.5 years now. Actually got my start by working with another good friend of mine. He used to go under the moniker the Professional Wingman. And if you look him up, he's done quite a lot of very cool, very impressive things. And so when we first met, it was at a Fashion Week event, and we just hit it off. We were hanging out, just got to talking. He told me about what he did. And so as we became just good friends, he noticed sort of my style and how I operate out in the field. And he said, you seem to have a knack for this dating thing. Would you be interested in working with me? And so just kind of fell backwards into it. So wound up working with him for about 1.5 years and then went out on my own. So because I predominantly do consulting, which is very lucrative and takes care of a lot of the bills and my fun hobbies, as a fellow car guy, wheels and tires are extremely expensive, and the cars I like are very expensive. So that's something that's preoccupied me full time. But I was doing it very much as a side business and doing a lot of word of mouth marketing, which was great because it allowed me to really keep a very small niche handful of clients, maybe like about no more than 4 to 5 clients a month, which was good. And then over the past, I would say, about 6 months, I've been thinking a little bit more and more about kind of scaling out what it is that I do. And so back when I was first getting started into it, it was a very different scene in the, I guess, manosphere or red pill community, however you want to label it. So I was a blogger at that time, and I was going under the moniker Alpha Jedi. And so, fortunately,
I remember that's what you told me when we were chatting. It was Alpha Jedi. Hey, what do you think of the manosphere today, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, it's
manosphere.
very.
I'm going to do that in quotations.
Yeah, right. Which I've never been a real fan of that term. I prefer, I guess, like red pill community, I guess would be.
Yeah, it's kind of a stupid name. It sounds like a gay club.
Oh yeah. What I think is interesting is I think it's definitely gotten a lot more tribal as it's developed and evolved. Because before it was kind of like there was maybe like 3 major camps. You kind of had like your guys in the RSD camp. Rollo, who really is, I would say, is the godfather of the sphere of the space. He was the one who kind of unified a lot of things. And then you had a couple like other smaller factions that could be kind of loped up into one. But now it's definitely gotten a little bit more, I'd say, like tribal and splintered, which I think is interesting because it's like it's kind of like when you look at a lot of different religions, it's like we all are kind of saying the same thing, but a lot of times we're kind of argue about the most efficient routes to get there. But I do think that it's also helping people get more tailored use cases and information for their particular situation or what vibes with them. So a large reason why, like, I've been a large follower of, like, Rollo and yourself and several others, is that your common theme is a lot more about, doing the work and understanding that this is definitely a tool set that is designed to help you, and it's yours to really play around with and kind of make your own. But understand it's a tool set, and it's not going to give you every single answer for every situation that you have. There's a lot that you have to do on your own, and you have to take ownership on it. Whereas others are a little bit more of like, hey, we're going to kind of like walk you through here. And I think others are, kind of a little bit more ego driven and are very much just trying to foster their own tribe. It's kind of like what we saw in the car community, where back in the early days of like car shows, like early 2000s, you kind of had to know somebody who knows somebody to like get into a car show or like get to one. And there was, the guys that had the crazy expensive cars and the guys that had just like kind of the entry level cars. And those guys with the entry level cars were kind of kept in check by the fact that it's like, hey, this is a very unknown thing. But once Instagram came out and there was a broader awareness, suddenly those guys could like have dedicated Instagram channels to their own cars. And so that kind of let their egos run a little bit of amok, and they've got a little bit more, I don't know, full of themselves than they should have. So it kind of seems a bit of the same thing here. Like as the red pill community kind of grew and got a little bit more awareness, still definitely very niche, but the broader awareness is definitely a lot greater than when I first started getting into it about 7 years ago. And
yeah,
so
now you see, now you see even women, trying to talk to guys about this sort of narrative. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that are kind of developing. Again, I don't really, subscribe to any kind of, manosphere, silly name. You get my point. I mean, like I'm the do the work guy. I mean, you can call it whatever the hell you want, but at the end of the day, it's you want to get great results out of life. See the world for what it really is, and do the work on yourself, and you will be able to get the things that you want out of it. We talked extensively when we were hanging out about cars. I mean, that was really the extent of a lot of our conversations. It never really tied around women or the sexual marketplace, but I want to dive into your 10 points over here. Guys, do me a solid. I dropped the link for YouTube. So if you're watching this on Twitter or Facebook, anywhere, hit that, come on over to YouTube. That's really where I'm trying to build the traction, and hit the like button. It just lets, the algorithms know that this is worth sending out to other subscribers. So, we got close to 400 guys in total watching. So hit that like button there. Just take your finger, slide it over with the mouse, iPad, phone, whatever you use.
Likes are free, man. Likes
are free, man. Doesn't cost you anything. Okay, so your first point about your 10 tips for 2021 and how to avoid making a train wreck out of your dating life is the digital transformation of the dating space and how men are getting left behind. Can you talk about that and why that's important?
Yeah, it's extremely important because especially as we've digitized as a culture, we've seen digital transformation be like a primary buzzword that's popped up in the last 5 years, but really it kind of goes back to 20 years ago. And so we've started to see as humans, when we get any type of technology and we start integrating it in a broader society, it definitely has a direct effect into the dating space. So the digital transformation of the dating space actually started about 20 years ago, I'd say, when we started to mass adopt texting as a form of communication. And so what a lot of guys don't realize is that, we've up until like the early 2000s, people still predominantly were talking and communicating either in person or through the phone, where there's a medium where you can get vocal inflections from people. There's a lot more you can kind of get out of it versus texting, which is a lot more sterile, and you have to be a lot more creative in the ways that you express your communication. So now that we find ourselves in this era that over the last 20 years, texting is now the predominant form of communication that people have, and especially in their dating lives, whether it's direct texting through Instagram, through text messages, through dating apps or websites. You've got to learn how to hone your communication skills, because even though when I work with a lot of younger guys, they've grown up with this technology, but they still don't understand the broader context as far as how it relates to intersexual dynamics. And the fact that when you communicate, you have to communicate with a purpose. And so a lot of guys, they fall into the trap of getting lost in sort of the text sphere, as I call it, because the way in which they communicate is a very platonic way that does not establish themselves as actually communicating in a more masculine way that, exactly, to elicit some interest and attraction.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you're on the West Coast in LA. Like, one of the things that I like to do, is use like voice messages, right? Like when I'm communicating, whether it's, DMs on different platforms, text messaging. I think that they have them integrated into Tinder and Bumble now and stuff like that. Like you can drop voice notes. I see guys getting really carried away with a lot of blah, 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 like back and forth, like, friend zoning, trying to get themselves in like a platonic zone. If you've got a strong vocal presence, one of the recommendations that I'd make to guys is use your voice too, right? Like stand out from the crowd, because a lot of people are just hammering away at their phone. Do you ever do that over there? Like, do you just like drop a voice message? Like I would do something like, hey, listen, I'm super busy tonight, but I'd love to catch a drink with you later. What's your number? And let's get together on Thursday or Friday or something like that for coffee, and just kind of like move it off the app quickly like that. I mean, like, what's your strategy with quick messaging?
Oh yeah, I mean, the strategy is be as quick and efficient as possible. So
Does it
this is something
get the number for you, or
basically? So a lot of my clients don't believe me at first until I like run them through a lot of my text messages that I show them from different platforms. Where for me, if I meet someone on an app or whatever, on average it takes me about 5 to 7 messages to get that person's number and offline, and we're setting up a date.
That's basically what I said in my book.
Yeah.
I said,
by the way, if you guys don't have it, quick plug, you need to get this. There's some good information in here.
Thanks, man. I don't have a copy here anymore because I gave away some signed copies. I got a few more on order so I can put them back up on display. But yeah, the whole point of the dating app is to get them off the app and get their number. They will either give you their number or they will give you an excuse. I don't know you, I'd like to get to know you a little bit better, or we'll see. Let me check my calendar. I'll get back to you. That's not genuine burning desire, right? That's indifference, right? You got anything else on number one?
Exactly. Or, you want to get them. Oh yeah, I'll just say really quickly, and by the number, it's not necessarily just the phone number. You can also use like Instagram or a different type of messaging app where it's, again, you're getting to a much more intimate level of communication. And that also works for in person, right? If you meet someone out in the world and you actually, get their number, get their Instagram handle, you want to apply those kind of same rules as well. So yeah, you want to be quick and efficient.
In your experience, like if you had to pick one, would you go for a number or would you go for Instagram?
It depends on who I'm talking to. If it's a girl that's, I would say, between 19 to 24, I'll have a stronger leaning towards the Instagram. Okay. If she's 25 or up, then the phone number.
Got it. Okay. So point number 2 in your list of 10 here is the impact of the pandemic on the dating scene and how most men got screwed. You're in California, like the most locked down state in the U.S. from what I understood, but yeah, just expand on that for these guys too.
Yeah, I mean, what wound up happening was with the lockdowns coming and the pandemic, the social space definitely was radically altered, where guys you had literally no choice but to go online, because if you happen to be out and you're trying to meet somebody while trying to talk through a mask, it was a very, psychologically speaking, right? People were in very much the stranger danger, don't get me sick mentality. So it just completely killed the in-person social dynamics, at least for the first 3 months. Then people started to get a little bit more used to things, get a little bit more adjusted, and some people just got kind of bored and sick and tired. But I do remember you guys had a rule 0, and John from Modern Life Dating, this was like back in early March when he was talking about, we're going into this kind of lockdown era. He's like, watch what's going to happen. Online platforms are going to explode, and it's going to be a very unique opportunity. And so that was something I definitely took to heart in my own experimenting, and also with a lot of clients I was working with. We're saying like, hey guys, understand, there's going to be a very unique opportunity here where literally everyone, from your average girl next door to your top tier Instagram models, they're all going to be forced to be online. So if they want to find some type of social interaction or have any type of romantic interaction, this is where it's going to be taking place. So you got to get ready, get prepared, because if you're able to adapt, you will be able to absolutely crush it. But if you aren't able to adapt, you're going to be in for a very, very, very long celibate time, because everyone's been forced into this one funnel. And the thing about the online dating space is that it's definitely heavily, heavily skewed in the girl's favor. And I wrote an article about this a while ago about how by design, a lot of apps and dating sites will psychologically blue pill you because of the way that they're set up and structured. And the biggest thing that they do is, especially for guys, is they give you the scarcity mentality because you're, swiping, and you're getting nothing. And then suddenly you get like one person that matches with you out of 100 swipes. And you're like, oh my gosh, like this is really awesome. And well, this is the one person out of 100 I tried swiping on. So I like have to focus in on this one person. So that kind of reinforces a little bit of that. You would think that would give you an abundance mentality, but for a lot of guys, when they go on there, it actually does the inverse and gives them a scarcity mentality mindset. So it's one of those, like, you have to understand the nature of the field that you're going in, understand how it's stacked against you. And then when you navigate that field, you'll be able to actually do very well for yourself by figuring out that cracking that personal science for you and understanding what formulas work to maximize your personal success.
One thing I want to mention to the point of this pandemic and the impact it's had on the dating scene, I've heard a lot of guys doing what are being coined as Zoom dates or FaceTime dates. Like that is not a fucking date, okay? If you can't get her to meet you somewhere, like grab a coffee and go for a stroll, or come over to your place, or to get together face to face, you're failing. You're really sucking at this game. Do not settle for a hour-and-a-half long FaceTime date. We have this radio show here in Toronto, and they have this segment called Ghosting. And I hear it every once in a while when I'm doing some driving in the morning hours. But there's always some story of some chick that's like, I don't know what happened. We had a great first date, and they're like, well, what'd you do? Well, I was walking around the block and I was showing him around on FaceTime and, the neighborhood and all this sort of, and I don't understand why he ghosted me sort of thing. It's like, hi, hello. The whole point of a date is face-to-face interaction. Do not fall for any of this like betatized, feminized notions that you should just like hide in your holes, in your purge holes with your masks on and your bubble suits on and date. That's not dating. Get face-to-face. If you're too much of a chicken to do that, then don't date. Forget about these FaceTime dates. You're wasting your time.
I will say, if you're a red pill, Zoom dates should be against your religion and vehemently against it. It's something very interesting about the Zoom date and that particular format. And in general, it's very platonic, and it's hard for me to put exactly my finger on it, but it's very, very difficult to foster that attraction. What I've actually found and recommended to a lot of clients is skip the Zoom date, do an actual phone date, like conversation. That actually works out. This is what
your typical dude looks like on a Zoom date to a chick. Don't be one of these dorks, honestly.
Yeah. Honestly, an old school phone call works so much better than an actual Zoom date.
Let me grab a couple of these super chats before we go to number 3. Benaflava said, what do you think of the level of simping in Coming to America 2? I've seen some ads for that. Is it the original Coming to America, or is it a part 2 to that movie?
It's a part 2 to that movie. But because the original one is a great, fantastic movie.
Because everything I saw from the trailer was like all old footage. Like that was one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. They did a follow-up sequel, which it's definitely not the same.
It's not good.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to see,
have you seen it?
Some familiar faces. Yeah, I watched it this past weekend. It was nice to see some familiar faces, and there was definitely a couple of good bits, but overall, it just wasn't. It's, again, when you watch the original, it's like it's made during an era where people looking back now, like there's no way that original movie could be made today, which is unfortunate.
Okay. I'll check it out anyway, because I mean, the first was a blockbuster for me when I was a kid. Tucano. Everybody's got these handles. I can't pronounce half of them. Anyway, thank you for the super chat. He says voice wins 10 over text. There are courses to improve your voice, but basically 1, use your diaphragm, 2, lower your pitch. It's a game changer. I can't tell you how useful a strong masculine voice is. You can do the texting stuff, but you want to caffeinate the hamster in her head. Okay, get her thinking more about you and connecting more to you than anybody else that she's talking to. Because remember, she's not only just talking to you, she's talking to a bunch of other dudes. And if you stand out with a nice, well-placed, 10, 15, 20-second message that leads to, dropping your number, let's grab a drink, something like that. It's powerful. It's a lot easier than doing this back and forth bullshit with emojis and smiley faces and stuff like that, right? Like that's what kids do. Thoughts on using FaceTime to weed out catfish? If you think you're being catfished, yeah. I don't know. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, I always use it as a last resort. That's why I also like go for like the phone call. So one, you can just kind of tell if it's a female voice or a dude trying to pretend it's a female voice. But I mean, it as a very, very like last resort, if you really are, that interested. And sometimes you'll get a little bit of, especially with COVID, you kind of have to give it a little nuance. Like I've only ever did one Zoom quote unquote meet with a girl. And that was, we had already set up a date and everything, like, hey, we're going to meet at this place at 6:00. And she was like, well, I still just want to verify that like you're a person. Do you mind if we do like a FaceTime call? So she, hit me with that like half an hour before we're supposed to meet up. And I said, all right, yeah, let's make it quick because I'm going to be here at 6:00 having a drink and hopefully you'll be joining me. Mm-hmm. And so had a very quick Zoom call for 5 minutes. And she was like, okay, thank God, like you actually look like your pictures and whatnot. Yeah. And she showed up. We had a very fantastic time. But so sometimes you got to give it a little bit of that nuance, but again, only a very, very last resort.
It's a lot easier to weed out catfish, today than what it was years ago, because more than ever, women have a social footprint on any number of different platforms. So if you're getting her Instagram or if you're getting her phone number, you can always do like a reverse lookup on Google or whatever on different platforms and see if you're looking at a 10 or 15-year-old picture or one that's recent of her. Another good way to know that you're being catfished too, by the way, guys, so you don't end up with a train wreck and waste your time, is if all of her pictures are just headshots. And usually the closer she is to the camera, like the more cropped it is, like if it's just an eyeball or an eyebrow or something like that, the bigger she's going to be. So you want like head to toe. And the way that I would frame it would be like, hey, do you have any other pictures of yourself? And she'd be like, well, what do you need to see? Well, I want to know that I'm not going to date a floating head when you show up at the bar. Like, you have a body, yeah? You kind of make a joke out of it. The ones that get offended, they'll be the fatties. The ones that won't, they'll send you the picture.
Yeah.
Number 3. Oh, hang on. We got to get this other super here in a minute. Okay. Number 3. Why text game is more critical more than ever, and why more men don't know how to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's definitely, I'd say it's probably the most critical. I mean, as far as comprehensive game goes, all of it is important. You should be always trying to strive and maximize all of your abilities. But I will say that, let's see. Oh, hey, what's up, buddy? Yeah, I know him. He's a good dude. He's a very good dude.
Being vouched for, man. Clout.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, we, so I would say is that what the really reason why I put a focus on text game is that with all the clients I've worked with, that's always been about 8 out of 10 guys. That's always been their weakest component. And the reason why is because texting and understanding how to communicate that way is what gets you into the door. And most guys have a lot of trouble just getting to the door, whether it's I met a girl in person and then, oh yeah, I've worked with one client who's like, yeah, I meet girls and, I get their information. And so we we text back and forth and then, just kind of peters out. I'm like, well, what's going on? Are you like trying to set up a date? Or it's like, oh, I'll text her and, then maybe like 2 weeks later, I'll ask for a date. I'm like, dude, you got to be in takedown mode, like right then and there. You can't be just going off on this lollygagging like, well, maybe eventually we'll get down to this road because,
women
girls have options.
Indecisive guys. Like they they hate indecisive guys. It's like, get the number, get the date. If she's putting things off, if she's, well, let me check my schedule. Let me see, maybe just ghost her ass, just unmatch her and move on.
Yeah, and you have to use it no matter what platform you're in, whether it's you met this person in real life or Instagram, whatever. You have to use it as a method for facilitating something in person. But you have to also recognize that it's a building process. When you're texting a girl, if by the end of your guys' exchange, she's not excited to meet you or has her hamster wheel spinning and her imagination going like, oh, I wonder like what this guy's like in real life or how this is going to go, then you're already shooting yourself in both feet before you even started the race. because everything's a building process. When you first meet up with a girl for our first date, right? It's a building process of, hey, you're introducing yourselves, you're getting a sense for, all right, how's our sexual chemistry? You're trying to build a little bit of tension, maybe escalate physically, and then that final expression of that escalation is going to be, in sex, and then it's kind of a repeat. But a lot of guys are missing the text part, which is a bridge to start building that anticipation and fostering that entire process. So it's a very, very important and very critical component to your overall game and how you interact with women.
Super chat from Al here. He says, "Yo, Rich, why the hell does it always work when you have the I don't care about you attitude with an attractive woman? It always works. It never fails." Because women hate simpy, needy guys. They don't want to be with a guy, or they don't want to be around a guy that like puts them up on a pedestal and simps for them and like bends the knee and like does all of the nice things that nice guys do. They don't want that. Truthfully, women want a bit of an asshole. There's an old saying in England, which I picked up on in my early 20s when I was living there for a bit. And they said, you got to be mean to keep them keen. Okay. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, also what it is like you got to break down like that, I don't care attitude. Like, what does that actually, what's the deeper meaning and representation behind it? Because again, women communicate very covertly, and so they understand subtext. So what is the subtext of I don't care? Subtext of I don't care is, one, I've got options. Two, I'm doing what I'm going to do. Do you want to join and be a part of that? And then three, it really comes down to just that level of confidence of that radiates out of you. Like, okay, cool. Like, I don't really have to care what it is that you think or say, because I'm confident and comfortable with who I am, that I will be able to foster options for myself. And so it's really that confidence that shines through that suddenly sparks gets that hamster wheel and that imagination going like, oh, wait, why is this guy so confident? Why does this guy like not care? Is he actually the real deal, or is he pretending? So at least that gets you in the door. Now, on the execution side, you have to be very consistent and congruent with it, because girls will find an incongruency in your game faster than anything else.
Yep.
So, if you're going to do the quote unquote fake it till you make it, well, be prepared to fake it all the way through everything and then actually make it, because you have to keep everything on point. And so again, it's about that whole building process. And so the I don't care attitude, that's definitely a very part in the very beginning of, oh, okay, what's this? What is this guy? All right. I got all these other guys that are always on eggshells around me, or always just trying to appease me and this, the other. And this guy's doesn't do that. Something's up with this.
Yeah. If you have to err in one direction or the other, don't err on the simpy side, err more on the a-hole side. And I mean, you don't have to be a prick or anything like that, but you have to carry yourself with an aura of confidence that lets her know that she's with the man, basically, is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, my own personal backstory, right? It's like I was that guy. Like, for those of you guys, like, I put this out there. I was a late bloomer. Like, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 26, and I was that total.
Whoa, dude!
Yeah.
I thought I was slow at 20, man.
No, man, 26.
26. Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay, so tell us the story, because that's like. You're like the oldest dude that I've ever come across that popped his cherry like at 26. Yeah. I'm sure there's guys out there older, but okay. So what was the story behind it?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I'd like pretty much kind of done like everything else up to it. But part of it was, definitely grew up in a more religious upbringing. So it was like more traditional, like, hey, you get married first, and then you can think about that kind of stuff. And then two, I was definitely like hardcore in that just blue pill mindset of like, oh, I want to really get to know somebody and see them as a person and like get them to be a friend. And I was as blue as they could be. So whenever guys tell me like, oh, well, like you're a tall guy and girls love tall guys, like, dude, I was that tall guy that was everybody's BFF that, couldn't get laid if I fell down, dick first into an orgy. Like, yeah, it was just when you're in that mode of mindset, invisible.
You know what's funny about that? I mean, like the older you get, I mean, you run into more people that tell you stories about chicks that dug your vibe at an age where you were so clumsy and clueless, or you felt clumsy and clueless and unable to close the deal. Like a couple of years ago, my brother got married, and at his stag, his one of the guys there was telling me that his sister had a huge crush on me in high school, right? And his sister was hot, like she was one of the tens that like everybody wanted, and I just couldn't believe it. Like you guys would be surprised at the level of desire that women have for you, even when you feel like you're at your worst, even when you feel like you're the clumsy dork that doesn't know what to say and is always all nervous and stuff. You will be shocked. Like you will just learn these things as you get older. Trust me.
Yeah, because I mean, remember I was out with my god sister once, and it was still like in my blue pillish days, and my god sister was saying like, yeah, it's always a problem like whenever I go out to you because all these girls give me all these mean, dirty looks. And I was like, why? I was like, I don't know. It's like, no, these girls are like attracted to you and they're looking to you, but like, why is this guy like, with me? And I was like, huh. And then once I started to pay attention, I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I totally like, I get it. So yeah, you would definitely be surprised. Like a lot of guys have a lot of unrealized potential, and it's because their mindset, they aren't aware of what it is that they can do, and they also aren't actualized in their ability to maneuver. So like again, it was once I discovered the writings of Rollo, and then back in the day Christian McQueen, those two halves were, one, you had the theory, and then two, you had the practical application. Combining those on my own personal journey definitely ramped things up and made a very, very profound transformation in a very short period of time. And that's the reason why, I go out there and try and pay it forward. Because like my life transformed radically in a very short period of time. And I've definitely been able to make up for a lot of lost time on that. But it is very possible as long as you're willing to, one, put in the work, but also two, you have to approach things with a very open mindset and kind of understand that, okay, I don't know everything, and there are people that can help give me that perspective that I need in order to figure out where I'm kind of falling a little bit short. And so that's one thing I've always been super grateful about with the community.
Got it. JP's got a super here. He says, girl doesn't want to smash on the first date. Should I drop her? Haven't gotten none yet, none in a year, but she's a 4 and wants me to work for it. Okay, so my view on the first date is it should be more of a sniff test. I mean, you should have options, right? I mean, you shouldn't really be dating 4s, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't go for the smash on the first date. It should really be a sniff test. Do you dig her vibe? Does she dig your vibe? It shouldn't be more than an hour. You have a drink, and then because you're a man on your purpose, you're a man chasing excellence, you have other shit to do. You can't sit around, yammering on for 2 or 3 hours about nonsense. It's move on. You can get to the smash later on, the second, the third date. It shouldn't go much longer than the third or fourth. But I feel like you're rushing this too. I mean, to begin with, you're starting with a 4, which is, 4s aren't fun. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? Because it's like if you were starting off at like 2s and 3s, a 4 is an upgrade. So hey, man, congrats. If you're, as long as you're making progress, then keep up the good work. But yeah, I would say it's all really about the kind of vibe and the energy. And so you always want to push the interaction as far as it will naturally go. And so that a lot of times, especially when you really get your game honed in, you'll be surprised as like how many girls you can take down on the first date. I've actually got some anecdotes later on that I'll cover, some personal examples around that. But it sounds like from what you're describing there, you're getting the vibe that it's like, well, she thinks that, she's rigor. It's kind of like what Rollo says, right? Any girl that's like going to make you jump through hoops, you got to ask yourself, is she putting rules on me or is she breaking rules for me? And it sounds like she's putting some rules on you. So she's kind of pushing you more towards that beta-ish category. So you got to kind of feel it out. But again, if a girl doesn't want to put out on the first date, she doesn't know you. You don't really know her. So, it's not the end of the world.
Women make rules for beta men and break them for alpha men. So if you have a 4 that's making rules and setting timelines, read my book. Honestly, there's a guy here that just dropped it, in the chat. Guys, get the Unplugged Alpha. It's worth the investment. I break down a lot of this stuff in detail in many of the chapters. It's like $10 on Amazon. So grab it. If you live in a country where Amazon doesn't sell it, go to bookdepository.com and you can grab it there. The Audible should be out by spring. I'm going to say maybe even, in the next 3 or 4 weeks. It's just in production now. What are we at now? 4? My experiences. Okay, so my experiences with dating apps and sites in 2020, case studies guys can learn from. Okay, this sounds like a big one. Floor is yours.
Oh yeah. So Yeah, it was. I was like, okay, once the news that the lockdowns were going to be happening and places would be closing up, I was like, okay, because before I was like, all right, there's online dating. It should really be like, kind of 10% of your dating in order to augment it. There's nothing wrong with it because a lot of guys, especially back when the world was just fully open, right? It's like, oh, 90% of the girls I try to meet are online. It's like, well, then that's inhibiting your in-person ability. But now that my hand has been forced, and it's like, well, literally everywhere is closed. There's kind of nothing to do. It's like, all right, let me see about this sort of online platform leveraging it. So I fired up, I got onto Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Field, Millionaire Match, and Seeking. And so I was like, okay, let me see how I can try and navigate this space. And so one, you had to get very creative, especially with a lot of places being closed. There wasn't really a lot of options. So I wound up actually having like quite a few first dates at my house. But the first 5 weeks of the full lockdown, so from the last week of March all the way through April, with my experimenting with online, I wound up talking to over 230 girls, which, some people ask, like, how did you have the time to do it? It's like, dude, instead of spending like 2 or 3 hours a night, like watching Netflix while you're eating dinner. All right, cool. Get some work done, take a break, eat a little bit, talk to a bunch of girls for an hour. Great. Like you can cover a lot of ground, especially with an online platform. But those first 5 weeks, I met up with 18 girls and I smashed 11 of them on the very first date. And then I was like, okay, I could be onto something here. There could be a bit of market demand for this. So then what wound up happening was normally in the before era, when it comes to plates, 2 to 3 is usually where I like to keep it, just kind of like a healthy, it's a good, nice balance, keeps things very manageable. If I'm feeling ambitious, maybe like 4, like absolute max 5. The craziest it got during the lockdowns would be in the month of July. I had 14 active plates. So I literally had days where it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but it was also like there were definitely days where like I canceled girls and like scheduled them because I was like, guys, I don't feel like doing laundry for the 5th or 6th time this week. So you know what, like we gotta push things off to the side here. But what I learned in my big takeaway from a lot of this is if you do well in the world normally, if you can translate a bit of that into your online or into your text game, then you can just absolutely knock it out of the park and completely crush it. And especially when the advantage a lot of guys don't realize is that, just kind of during the lockdown area and coming out of this pandemic, the playing field the gaps got a lot smaller, right? Because before it was like, all right, if you're out and you're meeting someone and they've got a VIP table here, or this guy's got, a nice car, something that he can show off. Okay, cool, that's great. But especially with travel being restricted, the gap in the playing field got a lot more narrow. And a lot of guys didn't realize that, where it's like, oh, if I'm a guy of just normal average means, I can compete with guys that are on the, millionaire status, because a lot of girls are not willing to hop on a plane to fly internationally because they can't afford to be in a hotel for 14 days for quarantining. So the opportunity there is it's immense and it's huge.
Here, let me ask you this question, because there's a question that was posed here. What are your thoughts on dating a girl with OnlyFans? Personally, I think it's simping. What do you think?
So a very key thing about dating girls is the context in which you meet a girl is one of the most critical elements. So if you meet a girl if you meet a stripper at the strip club, the context in which you're meeting her is that you are a customer, and she's always going to view you through that customer lens, and very, very difficult to transcend that and go beyond that, because that initial context is going to be over there. If you meet a girl at a coffee shop and she happens to be a stripper, completely different ballgame, because the context in which you've met her has been, oh, I'm out in the world, I'm not in work mode, it's not a customer, this is someone that I can interact with and treat normally. So if you have a girl that has OnlyFans, then I would say, one, what level of OnlyFans is she on? Like, is she, a very explicit type of OnlyFans girl? She's just the type that, all right, cool, I'll sell like cute pictures of myself. a little exploration on that, but also too, like, how did you meet this girl? Did you meet her before? Did you meet her on a dating app? It requires a lot more kind of case by case, I would say, because one of the girls I was going out with during the pandemic times was a porn star, right? And so a lot of guys would be like, "Oh, like, how could you ever?" It's like, she was super cool, very fun, but also the context in which I met her was outside of the, if I'd met her at a porn convention or something, or if I met her through an escort service, then totally view me through that lens. So, it really just depends on the context in which you've met this girl. And you kind of have to evaluate it based on that case by case basis.
Do not be her customer. Do not be her simping OnlyFans customer. Do not be her simping, stripper customer. Be the pimp.
No.
Do what do what the Tate brothers do and run their OnlyFans and make some money off it. That's my recommendation.
And no lie, it's definitely kind of fun as a little bit of ego boost. Like when I was going out with that porn star, or with like I've gone out with a couple girls that I found out later had OnlyFans, but what kind of is a little bit of a ego boost on your guy card, where it's like, oh, you're going out, you have locked in the girl that all these other dudes fantasize about. So there is something a little bit kind of fun to that. So
Jerry says, one of my favorites I learned from Rich is to tell them what to wear when setting up the meeting. It is effective in many ways. So if you guys aren't familiar with this, you want to competency test a woman. I mean, you can do it on the first date. You can do it on the third date. If it's like one of those nights where you're getting together to hang out, maybe, you're going to eat and smash and, Netflix and chill, tell her what to wear. Hey, that black dress I saw you in that picture? Wear that with nothing underneath it. Okay. It's okay to give them instructions and competency tests to see if they're entering your frame. That's why, Jerry's making reference to that, because it is quite effective.
And honestly, girls actually prefer it, because last thing they want to do is like
they want
deal with plans.
They don't want to think about, what they have to wear and how to do their hair. So if you tell them, wear the little black dress from that picture, okay, that makes my night easier. I know what to wear.
Yeah, like, we're meeting at this place. Here's what the dress attire is. Boom, boom. Here's the time. All right, cool. And then also that shows like, oh, okay, like, how to handle business. So it's like, okay, if he can handle this and setting it up, it's like, all right, I can see myself following this guy's lead, because he knows how to handle business and take charge.
Bingo. Number 5, common mistakes guys make with texting, what to avoid.
Yeah, so the biggest things to avoid is, guys, get your emojis out of your text conversations.
Yeah.
So many guys it's a very feminine way of communicating. And if you're talking with your friends or whatever, hey, that's totally fine, right? But if you're dealing with women, especially girls that you're in the very early stages of dating, minimal emoji. Like, you should never have them in there, but never underestimate the power of like a very strategically placed winky face. That's a good one to use when there's when you're trying to give a little bit of innuendo or imply something. So that's like a rare exception. But for a lot of guys, like, get rid of those emojis. It's a huge mistake that a lot of guys make. 2 is, your conversations are just kind of aimless. When it's like, hey, you're talking about bland, generic topics and there's really no point, rhyme, or reason. You want to have things structured in, again, a building process and a building fashion. So it's like, hey, all right, we get a little bit of initial rapport going, but now we know where we're going. So an example of a conversation that I use is, right, first, if I'm talking to a girl on an online app or Instagram, whatever, first question is, and this is just out of the blue, right? First question is like, I'm curious, like, tell me what your spirit animal is. And then, depending on, right, how the girl answers that question, because some girls are just like, well, that's a dumb question or whatever, blah, blah. Then it's like, all right, I already know that this person's not going to be with it. But more often than not, I get a very enthusiastic answer of, oh, no one's ever asked me this type of question before. I think I'm probably like some type of unicorn or bird. And so then, my next response will be something like, all right, that's awesome. Mine happens to be a lion. Now here's the next question, like, what's your drink of choice? And then from there, get an answer. And then it's like, you seem like an interesting person that could be a lot of fun. Let's link up for drinks at this time or this day. We'll exchange proper contact information. So right there, in just 3 messages, I'm already going for, hey, we've established that we've got some type of rapport and commonality, and we can now start to translate this offline. But also, it gives you something memorable to go back to. So that way, when she shows up and you first see her, you can just say, yeah, you know what, you look much more like an actual unicorn in person than you do in your online profile pictures, which is a good thing. So it gives you a little inside bubble in a world that you're starting to create. And that's really what it comes down to, is you're creating a custom tailored world and experience for this girl. And so you want to make sure that it's actually unique and exciting and something that she is looking forward to and her imagination can run with. And so a lot of guys, when they text, they don't have any of that. It's just, oh, hi, how are you doing? How's your day? Do you like travel? Well, I mean, who doesn't like traveling? Like, everybody does. It's nothing really that unique or special. Mm-hmm. So again, you want us to get into creating these worlds that just you and her have with your texting. And so those are, I'd say, like the two biggest mistakes that a lot of guys make, is that, they got way too many emojis in there, and they're just constantly, they're setting themselves up to be in a platonic zone. And that's where a lot of guys get frustrated and burn out on dating in general, is because they have all these conversations and it's like, well, I've been talking to these 4 girls for 3 months and I haven't met with any of them yet. And it's like, if you've been talking to anybody for that long, unless it's like she's in another country doing a Greenpeace mission and then is like, getting ready to come back, then you're doing it all wrong for nothing.
Read my book. If that's what you're doing, read my book. Got a question here from Rob. He said, any good movies for Netflix and chill? Do you have any recommendations for that?
Yes. The movie What If. It's on, I think it might be on Netflix. It's also on Amazon. Mm-hmm. What If is a fantastic movie, just because it is definitely a rom-com, but it's definitely got very good written dialogue. And there's one, Adam Driver, watching Adam Driver just be awesome is hilarious. But 2, it's got some very good, well written out kind of dialogue and scenarios. And especially if you're a little bit red pill aware, there's definitely some good takeaways that you can get from it. Another good one is The Invention of Lying. The Invention of Lying is actually a super red pill movie that a lot of guys don't realize. It's very, very in your face. And that's another very good one. I gotta write that down. It is. I think it might be on Netflix. It's Ricky Gervais, though. Rob Lowe, Jennifer Garner. That's very, like, as red pill as it gets, but it's also in a very fun kind of comedic fashion. So those would be my recommendations, especially What If, just because of the concept of sex nachos.
Awesome. Let's go to Saul's super chat. Hey, Rich, I sponsored a video a couple of days ago and just wanted to say that even though some of it may seem like a joke, it's not. Much love. I haven't had any new sponsor topics come in. There was one that came in the other day and I emailed the person back. It's not an area of expertise that I can help you with. So if that was you, check your emails. Jordan Goss says, off topic, is it likely that I got denied for a session with S.T. Smith because I mentioned I found him from your content? Don't know. I haven't talked to Sean in a while. I sent him a copy of my book. He got it, posted a picture on Twitter. He seems okay, but I have no idea. You'd have to take it up with him. Renaissance Man, he says, I was 16 as an apprentice electrician earning 200 euros per month. Is that per month?
I think so.
That's not a lot of money. I now earn 1.5 million per year as a business broker. I got kicked out of school at 15. Okay.
Yeah, true Renaissance Man.
Yeah, do that work. Do you think that all of these lost jobs, apparently women got hit the worst, could lead to a beta widow? A beta widow. That's interesting. I think what he's referencing is that, because women are kind of married to the state. And if they're losing their job, like, it doesn't matter if they're working or they're not working. The state takes care of people now, for the most part. I mean, you're not going to live a lavish lifestyle if you're unemployed or on welfare or the doll or something like that. But no, I don't think I've never heard of the term beta widow. I don't know. Is that something you've ever heard of?
I've heard of it, but I think, and to answer that question, what I would say is that if anything, especially with girls, losing their jobs and employment, which is unfortunate, that's just kind of reaffirmed we need to get like a top 10% guy, so like girls have always had a very they always have had very competitive expectations when it comes to the type of guys that they want and the guys that they want to attract and be with. And so now, especially in this area, it's kind of like with, if you're renting right now, right? Anybody that has an apartment or anything for rent, oh, you can pay rent, please come right this way. We'll do whatever we can to make sure that we get you locked in as a renter, right? Because a lot of people have been impacted and can't pay their rent. So if you're a guy that's, well dressed, fit, got good confidence, knows how to talk to women, suddenly you start to really stand out and shine, where it's like, oh my gosh, like this guy is like a beacon in the sea of just guys I would never ever want to be with. So yeah, if anything, this has just made the demand for high value men like tenfold.
Yeah, pretty girls are not scarce, fellas. If once you understand that women are abundant and that high value, like top shelf type of men are the scarce commodity in the marketplace, you'll understand why I keep telling you guys to do the damn work. Let's go to number 6, the key strategy of text game and how to navigate the digitized world. What is the key strategy of text game?
So yeah, it's basically that point that I was referencing earlier, which is you want to make it a building process, and you're building to an end goal, right? And so that end goal is first, going to start like, hey, you want to meet this person in person, and then it's going to be you want to continue to foster and grow and develop what you have going. Because a lot of times guys get the first date and things go well, and then through the way that they communicate, they just kind of lose or fade things off. So texting is a very critical component in keeping and maintaining your relationships. And especially if you want to go out there and spin plates, then you got to be on it. You got to be able to keep people interested, keep people invested. So you have to understand that it's a continuous building process and not okay, let me just fire off a couple messages and fingers crossed, like this one person will really like it and respond to it. It's like there is an actual science and formula to it. And you really have to crack the code for yourself, so to speak. That's why I kind of help guys out with a lot, because there's definitely a lot of false information out there where, the PUA guys were good in the beginning where they were like trying to figure out a bit of the formula. But the problem is that a lot of guys were lazy, and what they wanted was just give me a script. Mm-hmm. That's it. Just give me the script and then I follow it, and then, okay, great. And then
that's the problem I have with some pickup artists is they don't give you the underlying knowledge. Like if you're going to regurgitate a script, if you're going to become an actor, then once you fall out of character, I mean, you're going to suck. Like, you're going to go back to the other person. It's like, okay, first I got a nigger, then I got to do this and I got to do that. And it's like, oh man, come on. Like, and it's what about the underlying problem? Like the actual individual.
Yep. And it's that whole give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. It's like a lot of guys, they just, I just want to fish. Just give me the fish, give me the fish. But you teach a man how to fish, that man will kill no matter if he's, here in California, if he's in New York, if he's in Ontario, he can fish wherever there's a pond or wherever there's water, he can find fishing. So that's what you want to do, guys, is you want to understand how to fish and what style of fishing works for you. Because some guys are deep sea fishermen, other guys are fly fishermen, and other guys are somewhere a mix in between. But there is going to be no magic bullet script out there that's going to solve all your problems. You really have to take some personal ownership to figure out, okay, what works best for me? And not to say that other guys, certain quote unquote scripts can't be helpful for first getting you started. But again, you have to make sure it's authentically you, because I could definitely give you a very nice script, but when you meet up with a girl and she realizes that you don't talk like I text, there's going to be a very large discrepancy, and she's going to feel very tricked and like, wait, hold up, something's up. So again, it's that consistency of, hey, how you communicate through text has to translate over into how you communicate. Me, I like to be very excited, kind of gamify things. And, I'll text girls like, oh, that was an awesome thing that you said. Like, here's a high five. And, they get a response and they love it. But when they meet me in person, they say something cool. I'm like, hey, cool, high five. That's awesome. Like, it's very consistent and congruent with the way that I communicate. So think about how you communicate now and see how you can incorporate that into the way that you digitally communicate.
Bingo. Walk the talk. AJ with the super chat says, hey guys, I'm 17, just started my junior year at uni. Thanks for your advice. For the past 2 years, I've realized my worth. Please keep it up. You're welcome, bro. I got another one here. 100 pounds. Lovely. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's a very generous one. Point I was trying to make is that the guys need to focus on their value in the market. It doesn't matter where you are now. Find value. Focusing on others will end in failure. Exactly. I enjoy a conversation with you for your audience. I'd enjoy a conversation with you for your audience. Okay. What was the first point that he made? Renaissance. It was this one here. I was 16's apprentice. Okay. Earned 1.5 million. Yeah. Okay. So same guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's that point of, right. Life is going to be hard no matter what, right? If you're a high value man, like there's going to be hard challenges that you have to deal with. But if you're a low value man, there's a lot of really hard challenges that you have to deal with. So it's going to be hard either way. So it's like, choose your hard. You could have a hard where it's like, man, like, how am I going to figure out where to park my Lamborghini and like, take these 3 different girls I have to go to and like conquer this particular business meeting? Or there's that hard of, geez, how am I going to like afford to pay my rent? Or can I like afford to take this girl to a really nice spot? Like, you have to choose your hard. So you might as well choose the high value hard because it's going to be way more fun, guys. Way more fun.
Ramiro with the super chat says, great insights. Relationships are all about power. She either looks up to you or you look up to her. Maintaining discipline by not letting your feminine side override your masculine side is key. 100%, bro. 100%. It's all about frame. Rollo's #1 rule in the Iron Rules of Tomasi is frame. And, one person always enters the other person's frame. You definitely want her entering your frame. Mike with the super just says, just paying my dues, Rich. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the super chat. So we go to number 7. Know the rules so you'll know how to bend and break them.
Right. So that's where it's about understanding kind of the rule set for you and the way that you can communicate most effectively. So that way, then you can really start to improvise and do stuff. Like, especially starting out, like the emojis are absolutely terrible. You should not be doing those with girls that you don't know. But after you've been going out with a girl for a couple of weeks and you throw some emojis in the conversation, all right, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You're bending or quote unquote breaking a rule, but it's within the context of, okay, now that the nature of the relationship has changed and we've established this level of rapport, then okay, we can get in there, right? So typically when I'm texting, I typically tend not to cuss. I do cuss quite a bit in person, but when I text, I typically don't cuss. So whenever I do in a text, girls always like, oh, like this must mean something, or like what's going on here, because it's a rarity for me. So again, it's keeping consistent and true to form. So understand like the rules. You'll develop your own personal rule set for how best you can communicate. And again, whatever your strengths are, play to those strengths instead of like trying to dump a whole ton of time and effort and resources into like trying to boost a weakness into a strength. It's like you've got a lot of guys have a lot of really great core strengths out there. If you would just spend a bit of time just honing and driving those in, it'd be great. So if you're very creative and very good at being a jokester, then focus on that, and then you can start to kind of bend around and play with the rules of that context that you've set up for yourself. And if you're not, and you just happen to be a little bit more like, hey, I'm a logic kind of derived kind of guy, so my texting is going to be kind of straightforward to the point and bland, then leverage that. So that way you might want to focus more on, hey, I don't really feel like texting back and forth with this girl. I'm going to actually start, just calling this girl more, because guess what? An old school phone call kind of can go a long way. But again, understand how to maximize your own communication and create a bit of a rule set for yourself. And then you can start, because I never like telling people like, never, ever, ever, absolutely under no circumstance from now till the end of time can you ever do this, right? Like, exclamation points are another thing, right? Where a lot of guys, they put in too many exclamation points in their early stages of their conversation. It makes you just sound a little overly girly in the excitement factor, like a way a BFF would communicate. Like, you don't really need all that. But, if 2 weeks down the line, she says, oh, hey, my sister had a baby. Oh, congratulations. I mean, you could put an exclamation point behind that, right? So again, understand that when you're first starting things out, you kind of want to be a little bit more rigid. And then when you got an established flow, then you can really start to improvise. And it's like driving. You got to learn how to, first put the car in drive it, park it, reverse it before you can start doing racing or drifting or whatnot. Like all that stuff is great and fun, but you try and drift like right in your license exam, they're going to fail you right off the bat. So you got to like go through the steps first, learn the basics, and then you can really start to improvise. So learn the code of the matrix, and then you can start to break the rules of the matrix.
Jazz says 358 likes and almost 900 guys watching. Come on. we have, yeah, yeah. Get those numbers up there, guys. Take your mouse, slide it over. If you got a finger on your iPad, slide it over. Hit the like button. Helps me out.
Right.
That's cost you nothing. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Help him out. And Rich is not going to hold the show hostage like Byron does sometimes. I mean, it's entertaining when he does it, but still, it's like you know, sometimes it's you know, give support for a guy that's taking some time out of his day and his busy schedule to provide value for you guys.
There they go. They're getting up there, and then there's
okay.
10, and then there's 10 angry purple-haired feminists that downvoted it. Perfect. We're right on schedule. Number 8. Bridging the gap between your digital self and real self. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, again, focusing on that element of consistency, right? So this is where a lot of guys too, right, where they get in trouble, where they, especially when they start looking into a lot of content where they focus too much on, all right, I follow this exact script. When you meet in person versus when you could be whoever you want to be behind the phone. That's easy, right? I mean, we've all seen catfishing, and what I call this is unconscious catfishing, because a lot of guys, they communicate in a way that's very much not how they are in person. And so unconsciously they're catfishing this girl because they're communicating in a certain way that in her mind, she's visualizing how you are and how you are to interact with. And when you show up and you're a completely different person, well, she just got catfished. And girls do not like to be lied to. So you can tell her whatever you want, just don't lie to her, right? And you can do whatever you want, just don't bore her. So a lot of guys, again, they need to focus on understanding that they don't subconsciously catfish these girls. So if you're communicating in any particular fashion, make sure that it's very consistent with how you naturally communicate. So if you're like a very analytical type person, if you're a witty type person, incorporate your personality into the way that you're texting and communicating with people through that medium, because that consistency across the board reinforces everything that there is about you. And once there's a discrepancy, then suddenly she's going to start actively looking for, all right, well, if there's a discrepancy here, where are there other discrepancies? So girls they live in a world of continual danger and risk. And so, all right, it's a risk coming out to meet you. It's a risk talking to you. So you want to be minimizing that risk as much as possible. And the most efficient way to do that is having consistency across the board.
I'll tell you why women ghost men. Guys are always, I don't understand why she ghosted me. Like, I don't get it. It's because the real you did not align with your online presence. You got the date, you got the meet because of whatever it was, like whatever it was that you projected. Maybe it was your pictures, combo of your pictures in your bio, how you communicated. Maybe you were witty, but then in person you're dull as hell, or your pictures are very, very flattering and you look almost nothing like them. That's why guys get ghosted. So if your pre-presence does not align with your actual presence, your IRL, your in real life, that's why guys get ghosted usually. That's usually how it goes.
And that applies to it even applies to like your Instagram, right? Like if your Instagram is like, oh, hey, like, I'm rock climbing every other weekend, when in reality, like you'd rather just, sit at home or be by the pool or go surfing. Well, then guess what? She sees your Instagram and it's like, oh, I thought you were like a rock climber. Like, what's going on with this? So, everything, it's got to be total consistency across the board.
Number 9, the hard reality of the digital future of the dating space, a warning for men.
Yeah, I mean, my warning for guys is that as the world gets more digitized and as more guys still continue to kind of interact and communicate in a more kind of analog fashion, they are understanding that the digital space and medium, it can level the playing field a lot, but also can neutralize a lot of strengths that you have. So you have to be able to know how to adapt to that. Because, when I'm in person, right, I can be lively. A girl can see how tall I am. She can see my physique. She can really get a sense for my energy. Online, none of that's there. None of it is there. So I have to bring that energy into the way that I communicate. So that way I can still have the same consistent results that I see in the field that can be translated online. And so with a lot of guys, they're getting left behind because they're struggling on the in-person side, and then they're just really struggling behind on the digital side. So I'd say it's, the most important time is now to really start to focus on honing in your ability to interact with the world digitally. And, it's like what people say, what's the number one dating app right now? Instagram, really, especially with the crowd that's between 18 to 26. Instagram is probably the largest dating app. And it's, again, because it's a collection of showing off a digital presence of your lifestyle that people can have access to. And then you can also have a direct tie-in and communication to that. But it's also because the sexual marketplace is globalizing now. It's completely global. I mean, to give you an illustrative example, I mean, I've had girls that have come from out of state to LA just to come hang out. And I'm just like, okay, like this is someone I would never have had access to before if it wasn't for a digital medium. Mm-hmm. So understand that, wherever you are, girls are competing with guys from everywhere. And I remember once I had this drop dead gorgeous Russian girl that I met at this club, and we were hanging out, made out there, got her Instagram. And so I was trying to link up with her. And then after about 3 weeks, I realized like, okay, like this isn't going anywhere. So I kind of saw like some of her Instagram posts, and it's like, oh, there's a guy that was in New York who has a private jet that basically flew her out to New York and then just started flying around all over these places. It's like, yeah, I can't compete with that. Mm-hmm. So, I can't hate the guy. Like, hey, if I had that, I would totally leverage it too. But understand that, while the playing field is definitely the gap is getting smaller in some regards, it's getting a lot wider in a broader context, because now you're literally competing with guys everywhere. And a lot of guys like, pro athletes, oil sheiks, you got guys that are very affluent, that have a lot of means and can slide in these girls' DMs and say, hey, why don't you and 3 of your girlfriends come hang out on my yacht down in the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll just, party and see if we like each other. So you have to understand that, hey, the competition is definitely going to get fierce as far as guys' ability to be in competition with you is no longer geographically restricted.
I got a super here from Ramiro. Thank you. He says, focus on increasing your value. Remember, she wants to look up to you. Yeah, women want to look up to a giant. And you don't physically need to be like a giant, but she wants to look up to somebody that is better than her. That's all that hypergamy is, right? So focus on increasing value. Then if you want to get a woman to complement your life.
And
yes,
someone
sir.
That's like, yeah, going somewhere in life, that's the thing. Like, because, girls want to be a part of someone's journey that they can buy into. They don't want to be that person that like has to stop the wagon every 5 seconds to like ask for directions, or, hey, are we there yet? Or do you know where you're going? Like that's, they've got a lot to do with on their own. So
I was going to say, if you're a young man that's broke, but with a plan, doesn't matter. I mean, as long as you have a plan, you're an alpha dude, you're good looking, and you know how to run game, you'll be fine. But if you're an older gentleman, if you're more seasoned man, getting close to 40, after 40, being broke with a plan, even if you look alpha as hell, is not going to be enough. You need to have your money sorted out by that point. But yeah, that's a great point. And the number 10, the last and final one here on your list, is why now is a golden time to get ahead of the pack.
So, I mean, especially for a lot of you younger guys out there that were brought up with this technology, you guys are used to interacting with it. So understanding that this is the way that people communicate now and into the future is half the battle. It's kind of like with the financial space and how the digital revolution to cryptocurrency is happening there. I've been in that space since 2016. And so understanding, this is the way that finance is going, there's a lot of opportunity, especially, when the guys back then were, getting Bitcoin at like $3,000, right? And now it's, I currently think like 50 some thousand as of today.
Yeah.
So understanding that, hey, if you're on the ground floor of a lot of this, because again, this digital revolution in the dating space has only really been around for about just about 20 years now. So we're still on the bleeding edge of it. There's still a lot of upside opportunity. So being able to understand how it works and position yourself early is going to have a ripple effect to help future-proof you as a high-value man. Because there are a lot of guys that when things started shifting online, right, like a lot of the naturals, they were doing well and they were doing good in person. Now they find themselves in a space where, oh no, that's been relegated. Now what do we do? Well, I don't know how to do it.
Mm.
So understanding how the direction of the world is going and strategically positioning yourself and being prepared, it's going to make you adaptable. So that way, if another pandemic comes and there's more lockdowns or whatever, hey, your dating life will be fine, or you'll have a lot more flexibility, a lot more maneuverability. So that's my message of hope to the guys out there, right? Is that we're still in the very early stages of a lot of this. And so this space is definitely evolving and changing, but you can definitely position yourself now to set yourself up to have a very, very lucrative and productive experience going forward.
Since you mentioned cryptocurrency, I want to bring this up again. Did a show with Charlie on Friday. His course is open right now. I know you got into it before I did, so you probably made a lot more money than I did because you started sooner. But the material it's top shelf, guys. Do not ignore this opportunity. The course for Q2 closes on the 9th, which is tomorrow at midnight. I'll grab the link for it as well. I sent out an email the other day, which I don't normally email my list, so I only send out stuff if it's important. But what was your experience with the Cultivate Crypto course? If you can shed some light on it for these guys that might be on the fence. There's a link for the course, by the way.
Spectacular. You'll make your money back. Like it's I've been in the space since, like I said, since 2016, and I'm always like, hey, there's some stuff I can learn. And Charlie and Miguel and the guys that he's put together that are teaching stuff, they really know their stuff. And I will say that the way it's structured, it's going to be a very in-depth overview because, again, they're very much, I love their model, which is you got to do the work and take some ownership. It's like, we are going to give you a lot of information that's going to help you position yourselves, but it's a very empowering tool where it's like, oh, now I can competently read a chart. So that way, if there's a project that pops up that I'm interested in that I've never heard of, and it could be a sleeper, hey, I'm going to go look into this and I'm going to find the opportunity. So it's really well structured. They cover some very good, impressive topics, and they also structure it in a way that's relevant to where the market's at right now. Because right now is a very interesting window where if we start talking about how we talk about the market 6 months from now is going to be radically different because the market is in a very interesting position. So I would say, if you're on the fence, hop in there. You'll definitely make your money back. If it's more than you can afford, pair up with a buddy and just split the cost because the amount of information you get can lead to life-changing money. And that's not even a joke.
Yeah, the thing I like about the way that they structured is, I said this in my email when I sent it out, is, like a monkey could make a fortune in the market today by following the basic information that they lay out. Like there's over 20 webinars. And I think, there's enough value in probably the first 8 or 9 where you'll easily, do the right things from the get-go. So anyway, if you guys have been on the fence and that's of interest to you, check it out. Both myself and RW have been through it. It's good stuff. There was a super here I missed. Hang on a second. I don't have your email when you send a super. So if you go to the About tab of my channel and just kind of scroll down kind of halfway and push that I'm not a bot or I'm not a robot button, then it shows you the email address. Just shoot me an email with whatever it was that you wanted to send me. Just mention your screen name so I know who you are when you shoot me the email, and I'll keep an eye out for it. Let's see what we got here. Jazz says, thanks, Rich. I got the crypto mindset course. Guys, invest in yourself. It's the best ROI. Some guys get scared. They're like, they call it a Ponzi scheme, or they think that crypto is multi-level marketing, or they'll tell you to buy gold or silver. You can do that. And I have some gold and silver, but you'll never make as much money as what you can with this wall of money that's going to flow into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency over the next few years. You'll be looking back on this date today in 5 years' time, thinking to yourself, why the hell didn't I get in? Bitcoin's worth $250,000, $500,000 by then. I don't know what it'll be, but it's definitely going up there. Anyway.
And there's so many different levels to it. Like quick example, like last year I bought, through research and Charlie kind of putting me up on some things. I was like, okay, Chainlink seems like there's some good potential with this project. So I bought a ton of it last year when it was only $1. And then by August of last year it went up to $18, and then now presently I think it's like back up to $30, something like that. So I mean, you're talking, literally a 3,000% ROI in a year.
There's your Lambo money.
There's no exactly dollar cost average in, Lambo out. That's what they say.
Yeah.
But you got to like the opportunity here is in this market space. It's just it's like I said, literally life-changing money can be made. And again, I don't get a cut or anything. I'm in the course just like everybody else is a paying civilian, but there's a lot of valuable information, and at least understand that this is the direction that global finance is going. So you want to position yourself as early as possible, because guess what? In 5 years, maybe 6 or 7, when US dollar coin comes out as the official currency of the US, then you're going to be like, oh, okay, well, I guess there might have been something to these digital assets. And you really think about it, we're already using proto-digital currency anyways, because everybody uses cards. You have a card that has a digital ledger attached to it.
Don't even get me started on credit.
Right.
Sit tight for a minute. I just got a shout out to the channel sponsors, so I'm just going to go solo layout here and show the screen. Where is my banner? There it is. The tactical soap company, Grondike Soap, has been a great sponsor of the channel for a long time. So check it out. You can go to coopersoap.com. We'll also pin it in the top comment if you're watching the replay. You check out with coupon code Cooper, and you get 10% off. Handmade, pheromone infused bars of soap, pheromone sticks, and beard oils off the site. All stuff that I use every day, and they do not disrupt your endocrine system. Most of the soap that you guys use is crap, if I'm being honest, if you're getting it in the green boxes and cartons of 50 from Costco. You can use it, but if self-care matters to you, you don't want to disrupt your endocrine system and have healthy testosterone levels, check it out. It's up there. Also, I'm about to go live with my community after the show, because I always go every other week. So in about 5 minutes, I'm going to need a bio break and grab something to eat real quick. But if you're in the channel membership for YouTube, if you're on tier 2 or higher, which is a Q&A tier or higher, there's a link for the Zoom call on the community tab of the YouTube channel. So go look for that. If you guys are already in my 1% community, guys like Renegade Wingman are already in there. I'll be there in like 10 minutes. The link is already posted on the Facebook page. You guys will know where to find it. Brother, it was fun, man. Thanks for hopping on and joining me. Appreciate you sharing the knowledge. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
You can go to my website, renegadewingman.com. You can also find me at the same moniker on Twitter. YouTube, I'm going to be porting over I've been doing in the midst of, I got about half of all of my content from my old blog recorded as video. So I'll be uploading that to my YouTube starting next week. My old blog is alphajedi.com if you want to check it out. And I've interviewed a lot of the big heavyweights in the scene in my old podcast. So I've had a 2-hour+ interview with Brolo, Ed Lattimore, Goldman, all those guys, some fun conversations. And then, renegadewingman.com, though, I would say is the best place to get to me. Shoot me an email directly. For any of your subscribers from now till the end of April, if you mention this podcast and you book a service, especially with me, I'll give you half off your first session, just as a courtesy to Rich and supporting his channel. And then also I do have a course based around introductory level text game that is only available until this Saturday at midnight. So it'll give you a good sense of kind of my coaching style. And I should be charging like $500 for it, but it's only like $40 just to give guys a good sample of who I am, since I am starting from the ground up and from ground zero. So that's the best way to reach out to me. And look forward to seeing you in the community stream.
Cool. Check it out. All right, guys, have an awesome night.